Hey, thanks for hanging out. I'm Rachelle and you're listening to Thoughts About That. Hi, friends. I am here today with Kyli Hammond, and I'm so excited about this. I've been looking forward to this since we've met. Yeah. Seriously. So, Kyli is the founder of the Oklahoma Women's Journal. And we're actually friends in real life, but we have so much in common. And I invited her to be a guest on Thoughts About That. And Kyli, tell me about the Oklahoma Women's Journal.
Okay. So
I feel, it's like a big thing.
It's crazy because I don't think of it like that. But everyone around me does say the same. Like, it's so big. It's so huge. I can't believe you've done that. And so it is a quarterly submission-based women's journal. And I really started it in 2019, but it's evolved in those 3 years to what it is today.
Right.
We just released our first volume, and then we'll release our next one in April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I bet getting that first issue out into the world, and I mean, obviously I follow you on social, so I see all of the things that you're doing and women that you're connecting with and behind the scenes. Yeah. That's so fun.
Yeah. It's been, this whole 3-year journey has been life-changing, to say the least.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I don't think I would be where I am today mentally, emotionally, if it wasn't for the Women's Journal. I wouldn't be as healed. I don't think I'd be as happy. I wouldn't feel like I had a purpose as much as I do now.
Really?
So it keeps me going even through the hard days, the heavy days, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do you consider it like a passion project?
Yes, for sure. I think of it as a passion project, but we are definitely on our way to being able to make it a business where we could eventually, my partner and I, Lauren, would be able to do this full time and give up our other side jobs because I still serve on the side and I do what I can to make ends meet.
I mean, we have to do that.
Yeah, we're in a very...
We're in a recession and eggs are $8. So.
Oh, that's why I just saw that video. Did you see that video I posted of the girl and they were taking eggs and they're doing it was like a cocaine type, pretending they were doing cocaine cup.
Oh,
but it was for eggs.
But it's for eggs because they're the same amount.
Yeah, I got the goods, guys. I got the goods. They're being trapped. I don't know.
Yeah, it's awful right now. I mean, for a lot of people, and I mean myself included. And having side hustles and
passive income,
a job and a business is necessary to make it right now.
You have one too. You have a business and you have a job.
Well, I don't have a job, but I am always looking.
Yeah, you're always on the you're keeping your eyes out for anything possible. And I think that that's why I really enjoy the women that I've met through this because everyone can relate to this. It's not like I feel like I have to fake it, Yeah. I can be very authentic and very true with what I'm going through and the heavy days, and the women just are so supportive and so encouraging. I've tried to create a culture of authenticity and vulnerability around the Women's Journal. Yeah. And so I try to live my life very much mirrored to that because I want women to feel like if I'm doing that, then they could do it as well. Right. And if I'm not doing that, then what am I doing? Because I'm running a magazine that is literally for that. And it's giving women that opportunity to be brave in their vulnerability.
Yeah. What is vulnerability to you?
So for me, my whole life, I think that I have been told, don't overshare. Mm-hmm. You share too much. You tell people too much about your life. And that was a negative connotation, basically, how I would do it. But as I've gotten older, as I've been in this role, I've learned that that's actually my gift. That's my superpower because I am able to relate with people because they look at me, and that's vulnerable for me, is when I'm able to share with them my hardships or I am transparent with what I'm going through. I jokingly just blurt out random things about if I'm microdosing on something, and people are like, "What do you do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's I do these things because I want women to feel comfortable. I don't want them to feel like they are
in the green closet."
Yeah, because I'm not going to be in that. I go against the grain, and I always have, and now I feel like because I was able to start the Women's Journal, I think that 3 years into it now, I realized, damn, Kylie, you actually
did this.
You did this, but you did this because of all those things that everyone would say that were negative about you.
Right.
Those were actually what got me to that success of 3 years into this now and getting our first volume out and women saying, wow, like this is what we need.
Right.
Because no one would have been able to do that unless they realize, like, I've got to be the vessel. I've just got to be transparent and authentic and put this out there for everyone and not care.
I feel like today we're going to cover more than just one topic.
Yeah, that's how we're
because that's how we are. So I just want to give a trigger warning to anybody with mental health or any religious trauma. That's definitely going to come up today, and I want to give you that option whether to listen or not. So yeah, the last the last conversations we've had have been, well, first of all, we don't do small talk.
No, we dive deep.
And while I want this to be like a leisure podcast, I want us to leisurely talk about things that people don't talk about, because it's really not that hard if you just talk about it. But it is hard in reality for some people, a lot of people. We've just gotten to the point to where it's not hard to talk about. It's what we talk about because it's our life and it's our journey.
It's our truth.
It's our truth, which I really appreciate about you. Like, you've been sharing on social, video is just one of those things. Like, I'm always told by people, like, how do you do video on social media? And I'm like, because I can talk. If I were just left up to my own accord to just write things, I would never talk to the public. I would just never say anything. I wouldn't have a podcast. So, you've been doing a lot of video, both on TikTok and Instagram, just sharing, what do you feel like you share the most?
I share probably the most about mental health.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah, mostly just because of my borderline personality disorder, which also short for BPD, or BPD short for borderline. So I try to put it out there because that is something that people they see us and they stigmatize us, and they don't think we can be functioning as normal humans in society with that illness. And, I just recently was diagnosed when I was 28, so about 5 years ago. And it was very life-changing for me because it really just opened my eyes to see why I would cope with things the way I would cope, why I wouldn't be able to handle, if I got fired from a job, my whole world would end.
Right.
So why would
getting fired is traumatic.
Yes.
In and of itself. But even just like you said, the day-to-day
functioning of
our
emotions are up and down throughout the day, and it's not like I hate when people think that we're gonna bite their head off, or our mood is just, it's not that. It's literally like you're wearing all your emotions on the outside of your body.
Okay. So I can totally relate to that. In the thick of my mental health journey, I used to say to my husband all the time that I felt like I was open flesh.
That's what it is. With BPD, they describe it as that, that you have so many emotions that you feel constantly throughout the day. And you can go from sad to happy to sad to happy. And, it's not like we're bipolar disorder.
Which nothing is wrong with bipolar disorder. It's a thing.
It is very, very much misdiagnosed, bipolar and BPD. They tend to misdiagnose both with either or.
Right.
And so I was diagnosed with bipolar growing up from 15 on, and I just never resonated with it because they would put me on mood stabilizers and antidepressants, and I would basically be tranquilized. And I remember passing out one time at Ted's Escondido one time when I was 19. I was like at dinner and I just passed out. I couldn't stay awake. And that was just to me too much. I got off all that medicine. And so, yeah, when I was 28, when I got diagnosed, it just opened my eyes to so much. And I started that like journey through healing. I would recommend to not research every single book about borderline when you get diagnosed, because then you start to see these other people's symptoms and you start to think that you have them.
Right.
And there's such a wide spectrum. You're not going to have the same. I think they said there's 100 different variations of symptoms that you can experience as a BPD individual. So no one's the same.
Well, I feel like BPD, just from what I know about it and have experienced on my own journey, it a lot of it stems down to abandonment, rejection, silent treatment from your parents. Those types of things would cause BPD. And I find that people, and obviously I've said this before, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a doctor, I'm a podcaster and a mom. And like a Black woman living in America, and I get mental health because I've dealt with my own, and it's caused me to dig deep into my trauma about how I was raised, spiritual, religious trauma.
That kind of ties into it too.
Yeah. And I feel like there's like a theme of that type of trauma that leads to the intense emotions that we feel on a daily basis, which affects your energy, it affects your job, it affects everything.
Like I woke up this morning feeling heavy, and I told you I was feeling really tired. I don't know why lately I've been feeling really tired, but it is something that we don't really tend to recognize in ourselves when we do feel like that. And also the weather doesn't help.
Seasonal depression is
so real.
It's so real, yeah. Like, and I've tried the freaking lamp lights, but, and no, I don't want to deter anyone who's listening to try that, but like, I need the sun. Personally, it was just no replacement for me. But I started my journey in 2015. Well, actually it was before that. Can we talk about therapy?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm a big proponent of therapy, but I started in Christian therapy.
I have gone through those many times with my pastors.
Yeah, and so not just Christian therapy, Kylie. I've done biblical counseling.
Dear God.
Yeah. Biblical counseling.
How did that go? What was the basis of it for your depression or?
Yeah, it was for depression. And a lot of it was basically, let's talk about David and what he went through.
Oh.
And like, they would like she would pray over me. At this time, I wasn't on any medication. I was just trying to cope through
prayer.
Through prayer. Yes. Through literally prayer. And I was working a full-time job that was, a big girl job. And I am dealing with these big things emotionally. And it took a lot to get through the freaking day on a daily basis. But I was going through biblical counseling right after I got off work to be healed. Yeah. It was a lot.
Okay. So, wow.
Yeah.
Did it help you?
No. I mean, I feel like, first of all, I feel like what helps people is being like seen and heard. So in that regard, I was like talking, I'm an external processor. And so just talking about life's issues and hurdles
was helpful.
Was somewhat helpful. Yeah. But did it make things worse? Absolutely. And so like we've talked a few times about religious trauma and I feel like there's this wave of deconstruction that's happening for a lot of people.
Oh, I feel that too.
You
I think
do?
we're seeing it. I think for the first time, we're starting to really see the truth and what has been hidden from us for so long.
Truth is such like a trigger word. No, not like that. But it's like, for me,
the
like
truth,
the truth, the light, the way.
But I think like now it's like, it was such a shame-based thing for us growing up. It was basically pounded in us. Like, you know, if you feel depression, like if you're feeling like that, then you're not obviously walking in the Lord's, like you're not walking with the Lord. You're not in the Lord. You have one foot in the world and one foot in Jesus.
Right.
And I just, those things, I remember being so angry because I would wonder, well, then why am I wanting to commit suicide in 7th grade? Why am I overdosing on aspirin, taking a handful of it in 7th grade to try to kill myself to go be with God? Because God was the only one that okay, so let's kind of like backtrack a little bit, but growing up, I was always raised with the non-denominational religion. And so you wouldn't think that it would be very cult-like, but as I've gotten older and I've realized that our entire life was surrounded by a 100-member church, and they knew everything about our life from the time I was in elementary all the way up until I graduated. Even to this day, some of them still follow me on Facebook, and that's why I don't use it often. Yeah. Because I just...
Good for you.
They view my stuff now, and I understand, you know, that they're probably like, oh my gosh, Kylie's coming out. She's out gay, and she's saying like, you know, she's bashing the church, and I'm not bashing the church. It's just what I am doing is I understand the hurt that it's caused to so many individuals.
So many.
And it's not God.
No.
It's the church, and it's the church. It is the church.
It is the church. I 1000% agree. That is like 1000%. You know, if you go on TikTok right now, there's just a lot of people who have decided to come out about their deconstruction. I feel like TikTok, you find your people because it's where we get to talk. It's not like behind a facade or behind Instagram or behind Facebook. I feel the same way. Like I have a business Instagram and a business Facebook, and like, you know, we're millennials. I had Facebook when you had to have, you know, a school email, and now it's this whole thing now with all of these features that you can do, but I still don't feel like I can be my full self on Facebook. Whereas TikTok, I feel the most able to share things.
You're so right. I've actually recently, because of you saying that to me, and I really assessed everything, and I was like, wow. I made my Instagram private. And I started to focus more on my TikTok, because the Instagram is great for all the people that are already in my life who want to see the behind the scenes of what I do for the Women's Journal. Right. But I don't need to like grow that platform to be anything other than what it is right now, personally. Yeah. But I think that for TikTok, it is something that you can be more vulnerable. Right. And there's so many other niches out there that you'd be amazed at where you fit in.
Right. Fitting in. No, like seriously, like I was listening to a podcast, one of my favorite podcasts the other day, and there's a space talk. So like if you like all things like space, you have a place.
There's everything on TikTok. So if you're not on TikTok, you should really start.
You should go and find your people, because they're out there. I promise. I don't care like what you think.
BPD. So I found people who are literally posting about BPD, doing hilarious videos about it. And it's just like, wow, I'm not alone.
I'm not alone. Yeah.
And then, the deconstruction, you were right.
Right. Yeah. Deconstruction. Like even coming out, you know, whether it's the green closet or the rainbow closet or the shroom closet.
All of it.
Like you can find your people on TikTok. So go follow us on TikTok. I'll leave our handles in the show notes. But deconstruction.
Okay.
Kyli, that's like such a big thing. But how can we like
How can we narrow it down?
Okay,
so here's what I think about it. So I've spent the last year really so when I first started, I started with the religion. I started, with the piece, where did they originate? What was the first religion? And the reason why I started researching so heavily into that was because I've watched my parents. I love them to death. They are from a different era. So they're not going to take the time to do the research. But so many different documentaries have come out, and there was one recently called Ancient Apocalypse, actually, that really even opened my eyes more of how long our planet has been around and all of the things that, our previous cultures have done and just how sophisticated they were, and we think they were hunter-gatherers. It's just crazy because there's been so much lineage and history to our world that we
I feel like every generation is going to have some type of basis of what they believe in, faith, whatever, whether it's astrology or...
We need that.
We need that. We need to make sense of our, our human existence and things like that, right? But I feel like religion, and we live in the Bible Belt, we're in Oklahoma, is just a thing that's affected so many of our generation. And we finally have a way to talk about how it's affected us in a negative way. Tell me about, what was childhood like for you in regards to church?
Okay. So in my house, my dad was not a Christian, my stepdad. So every Sunday morning for church, there was yelling in my house because it was just, there was this constant battle going on between my mom and dad, spiritual, what I thought, at the time.
Spiritual warfare.
Yeah. Spiritual warfare every Sunday morning. But really it was can y'all just control your emotions and be kinder? It was just rough, but Sundays were always miserable. We weren't allowed to listen to certain things. Christian was the only thing we were allowed to in country. So we weren't allowed to watch MTV, any of that stuff. But our life was just so surrounded by the church community that I really don't even think my mom understands what it's like to have fellowship in the secular world. And I feel like it breaks my heart it does break my heart that she doesn't have that, what we have. And I think that really, really stunts us growing up in that because we don't open our eyes to anything else around the world. We just stay in the box. Right. And she stayed in a box her whole life. Right. And I was almost like that. I remember just growing up and being told things if my sisters weren't following Jesus or they didn't believe, my mom would say things well, honey, pray for them because they're going to go to hell, and you'll be separated from them for eternity. You'll never see them again. And I remember being, I felt like I had to save them. So I would constantly just try to share the Lord with my sisters to the point where they pushed me away. They didn't want anything to do with me. I was too much like our mom. And I even have that tattoo on me that says, live as Christ, die as gain. Wow. Literally, to me, it meant to live on this earth is to do everything that you can to bring as many to Christ as you can. And then die is gain because I get to go be with him. And that was what Paul wrote because it was his time on this earth was only to be a servant for the Lord. And then to die was to go be with him. So that was gain.
We didn't have to make a living. We didn't have to go to work.
We didn't have to do anything. We just lived our life to serve the Lord.
Yeah. I think that is definitely now I got really off into religion when I was about 21. And so because of you saying the going with the Lord thing, I wanted to back up because when my father-in-law passed, we had to talk to my son about what happened with his grandpa. Mm-hmm. And I remember looking online, how do you talk about death to a kid that's not traumatizing? And I had a friend share with me that, don't tell him that he went to be with the Lord.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Not that I would have told him that, but he went to heaven to be with Jesus or whatever, like, because that's abandonment. Like, why would he leave me? I want to go there and be with him. You know what I mean? And so like, I thought, oh my gosh, that's so, like, I got that advice literally on the day of the service. And I was just so thankful because I needed to, you know, talk to him in a way that at the time, I think he was 3, to understand. But I think it's really that simple when we break it down for a 3-year-old. It really is that simple. And I told him, I was like, here's what happened. And he was just like, he died like a robot. Like, you know, when a robot stops. And I was like, yeah, like stops. Like,
that's beautiful.
Yeah. But it helped him at 3 to conceptualize such this big concept. Yeah. But imagine, like, had I said, go be with the Lord, or like, that would be so traumatic, right? And so for you as a child, you were told, like, your sister was she not baptized? Was she not?
She just completely walked away from Christian belief.
How old was she? That's bold to do.
I mean, so, gosh, I was the only one who didn't. So all my siblings, and I have about 5 of them, they all couldn't do it because we were raised in such a way where if we didn't have our Bible on our nightstand, our mom was saying, you're not reading your word. Where's your Bible? You know, and it was so drained into us that, like, I think that and then, you know, that shame, that guilt feeling that we would get. Like, I remember walking into the church at 15 wearing holes in my pants. I always wore Hollister jeans and would put holes in them at that time. And I was just judged so heavily for that. People
for holes in pants.
Yeah, they would say you're wearing your holy jeans, like HOLY, like, oh, she's wearing her holy. But I always knew that I would blast my screamo Christian music and get in trouble because I was listening to that kind of music. But I just knew that I had a deeper connection with God because I knew my parents. I love them, like I said. But the love that I would get from them, I knew wasn't the type of love I could imagine. I imagined my Creator to have. I always imagined my Creator to have this selfless, undenying love for me that whenever I was getting yelled at or getting in trouble by my parents in 6th grade and up, I would go straight to my journal and write to God immediately and say, why is this happening? Why are my parents treating me like this? Why is my dad telling me that I might as well go stand on a street corner because I'm wearing a 2-piece at Whitewater Bay in 7th grade? And so I'm basically a tramp is what his words were. Right. In 7th grade, I remember going to my journal and writing that down immediately.
I can imagine telling my son that. Like, could not imagine. And you know what? I think our backgrounds are different in that you experience your trauma as a child or, you know, throughout your childhood, whereas I experienced it more so as an adult.
What? Like the religious trauma?
Oh, yeah.
Because you got heavily into it.
Because I got heavily into it at 21.
And then they were trying to do biblical counseling with you.
Biblical counseling. So
what really broke you from that? What opened your eyes? When was the moment that you were like, this isn't working?
That's a great question. I was the girl or the woman, because I was an adult, that had like 18 women coming to my house every Thursday as I was the community group leader.
You were.
I was the Bible study chick.
I used to go to those all the time.
Well, you would be coming to my house because I was the one
I
that
would have.
Well,
freaking A.
Freaking A. But yeah, so I experienced it as an adult. I actually experienced a little baby conversion therapy.
What? At this time?
During this time. What made me really realize was when I was about to marry my husband. Sorry, babe, if you're listening to this. But I was about to marry my husband, and I was so, like, depressed because we had sex before marriage. And I wasn't even a virgin, which that word is not even like, that's a whole nother topic. But I was so depressed. I remember feeling like I had fallen out of the grace of the Lord. I had to just do all of this repenting, and it just sucked all the goodness out of my life and just out of what was supposed to be a beautiful time of my life. So I remember like going through, I think it was like a Bible study on grace, which is still a big trigger word for me because like, unless it's your name, like I don't want to use that word in a sentence. I don't want to be told that word in a sentence.
I always try to say, give yourself grace.
Right.
Because we've been taught so much that it's the opposite. God's grace.
Right, God's grace. That's good. Yeah. You have to get it outside of who you are.
All those terms, all of it, just take it out. Yeah. And
they focus, like I went through a program called like, I Am Second. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh.
Okay, so, but back to what I was like, I was so depressed and like to the point of, like I didn't want to be here anymore because the weight was so heavy that I failed. We were full-blown grown adults in corporate America. There was no reason why we couldn't move in if we wanted to before. It was just like all these rules. And like I do believe that I'm on the spectrum. And so I think what was hard for me was there were literal things that I would literally, take, and it just ruined
Take it literal.
And it ruined my mental health, and it ruined what was supposed to be such a beautiful time that I could never get back. So I decided I was going to step away. We were going to a church that we were not members of, right, but we tithe regularly.
Oh my God.
Okay.
The member thing gets me.
Yeah. It is. So I was going to this church and we were serving every Sunday. Okay. And I was going through the worst time of my mental health, and nobody saw me. They instead were like, hey, somebody said they can't come in today. Can you like stay for another service and help some more? But they didn't see me and what I was going through. And it started to take away from time that was very precious on Sundays because like we work 5 days a week. Yeah. My husband at the time was working like 50, 60 hours a week. And it was just like, y'all want to take more time from me? Like what? Like it was not helping me. It was making me feel like more drained and more. So at that time, this is obviously after we had been married, I decided to step away. And he supported me, and he went through his own process. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I backed down, and I've never looked back.
When was that? How many years ago? Sorry to interrupt you.
No. It's good. I think it was 2014.
Okay.
2014, 2015, one of those.
Okay.
But, experiencing as an adult, it's like we had, like back then, it was like, and not to minimize, it's both like terrible, but like we had, the beginning of social media. So there were like all these, women who were doing these Bible study books and like speaking conferences and everything. So it was like, I really just got indoctrinated because I was like soaking up all of the things.
Just all of it.
All of it.
And we think that, I think that we assume that that's going to heal every part of us if we just continue just absorbing all of this, everything that we can. And I think that's where I started to realize like, okay, with my mental health and with the religious trauma, well, even just with the church in general, it was always, I remember even in 2020, a friend of mine telling me that I had a spirit of lust on me. I had a spirit of rejection on me. So that's why I was struggling for so long with not being able to attain a relationship for very long, or why I was so wanting to have sex with anyone or any guy, you know, and I never had relationships with them. Well, here's the thing I just realized actually listening to Glennon Doyle yesterday on a podcast about attachment styles. The reason why I was sleeping with all these men was not because I was seeking sex. It was because that was the only time during that act that I felt love, that I felt worth, that I felt any kind of adoration or seen. Yeah. So all those times that I would do it, I didn't feel connected to them outside of that. It was just, I needed that. And that was because of what growing up we experienced. But also it was like, wow, I don't have a spirit of lust on me. I don't have a spirit of this. And she would try to pray it out of me. And I remember sitting there one time, and I'm going to explain this one situation in 2020 when I was screaming at God in my bed. My roommate wasn't home at the time. It was dark. So I just remember just being so upset and crying hysterically, like, why am I not set free from all of this pain? Why am I still experiencing this, God? Like, I've been doing everything since I was a little girl.
Like emotional pain.
Yeah.
Mental.
Like mental and emotional pain.
And I'm sure some even physical at times.
Yes, always. Because that it correlates.
Absolutely.
So why am I experiencing this if I'm in God? Why am I, if I'm praying and I'm watching these Bible studies and I'm reading my word? And so I cried and I screamed at him. And I just got so upset. And I remember that in that moment, it was dark in my room and I saw this like wave of whatever come in and my clock distorted. And it was such a like kind of weird thing. And I kind of got under my covers a little bit, but it hit me and it warmed my whole body. And I think at that moment was when I realized that whatever it is up there was trying to tell me like, you're fine. And it's not about that. It's not about this. So I think that was when I started to truly like, because that warming sensation that covered my entire being after I was crying and screaming, it was like, it warmed me and made me feel okay and peace.
Was it not the Holy Ghost?
I don't think so. I don't think it was.
I'm laughing because, but it's
the Holy Spirit.
It's the Holy Spirit. No, really though, I do. First of all, I'm sorry that, you know, you experienced what you experienced, but then I'm so glad that you had that moment where
open my eyes.
Yeah, where you felt like, okay, why am I not feeling better?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I'm doing everything right.
I'm doing everything by the book.
By the book.
Why do I feel like crap? And that was exactly how I felt when I was about to marry my husband, and for years after when I just kept getting into the thick of it. And I think that's what changed. Like, I've been through the gamut, Kyli, when it comes to mental health treatment.
Mm-hmm. Same sister.
Mental health. I was like 2 steps away from electric shock therapy, which I don't have any negative.
I want to try it.
Yeah, well, I don't have any, bad feeling, but that's just how bad my brain was. It was so messed up, and I was so depressed and anxious, and, you know, all this mental and emotional anguish that they were like, okay, these meds aren't working, you know, like, you're in therapy, like, let's try to, you know, do some electric shock therapy to see if it can rewire your brain from all this pain, which now we know it's from trauma, but I don't think my mental health treatment was as trauma informed, but that's for another day.
Yeah. But I think the most important part of all of this is like that we both realized something was not connecting.
Not connecting. It was
with our
not,
mental.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are experiencing that right now.
That's what people are experiencing. It's like this, like kind of how the Great Resignation was with jobs and things like that. There's this wave of deconstructing and realizing like, damn, I'm tired of feeling like shit. Yeah. I have been doing all these things and I just don't feel good. I don't feel good enough. I feel like a failure. Like, and so I think that's where like a lot of the good thing about social media, because there are some, you know, bad parts, like comparing ourselves and things like that. But the good things about social media is the people that are brave and, you know, vulnerable and sharing their stories for other people to hear. Mm-hmm. That, you know, like on top, and this is not even like mentioning, 3-year pandemic, recession, $8 eggs, feeling like shit. This is like just that part. People are sharing that part, and it's helping to get that feeling of like, I'm not alone. There's maybe some hope.
I think that in the church too, we were raised to not really talk about that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I think when people see that we're talking, we're being open, and we're saying like, I want to say with that, social media is so important for that type of platform to share your story. I think that people should be more vulnerable in sharing, because if more and more of us would do that, then we would start to see all these unique differences in each other and start to celebrate those more than everyone trying to fit into a box. Yeah. And I think there's so much diversity to each and every one of us that we just need to showcase that so that the world doesn't feel so alone. So definitely take that platform and take advantage of it in that way.
That's actually one of the reasons why I started this podcast, Kylie, is because I wanted people to feel less alone.
Yeah. I think you're doing a great job too.
Oh, thanks, friend. But yeah, like I'm so glad we have that space and this space. And so I'm thankful for that part about social media. It's helped me to understand my human experience in a very practical way. And just hearing other people and engaging, I be all in the comments like, girl, yes, because it's real. And this wave that's happening, what do you think will be some of the like big things that's going to come out of the deconstruction wave?
I really think that the church is going to become more taboo. Is that it's going to become...
What? That's bomb. I love that.
As people start to deconstruct, I feel like they're going to start to see what that organization is. Yeah. And I think that they're going to start to understand that you are capable of having the same fellowship that they tell you can only find in the church, outside of the church. Yeah. And with the Women's Journal, that's also what I'm trying to create is fellowship with women. I've been told this even recently at the collage party we had on this past Sunday, a woman told me that we were relating in the sense that we were both from the church in the past and how we didn't have that fellowship in the secular world. And if you're from the church, secular is a word that we talk about often, and no one in the secular world even knows what secular is because they're like, what are you talking about?
But, worldly people.
Yeah, the worldly people. And so you don't have that fellowship with the worldly people.
Right.
And you feel guilty if you even try to associate with those worldly people. But as I have gone through this deconstruction, I've found the world is so colorful.
Right.
And there's so much to be admired, and there's so many humans to admire that are outside of that church organization and outside of that religious scope, that it's like we have so much to touch in this world. We have so many lives that we have yet to touch. And when a woman told me that I should make this magazine for the Christian church for women, like I should create this for Christian women, of course I'm going to say no, because that's not going to reach the ones I want to reach. Why would I just isolate it to one group? That's this whole thing that everyone's doing is isolating each other by creating these Christian pods. Yeah, like it's a clique. Yeah, it's such a clique, and
it puts you in a vacuum of what you believe, and like it just like I had in one of my Bible studies, I had somebody come out about their brother being gay. Okay. And she stood up and was like, he's going to hell. That's an abomination. And I had to be like, hold up. And this was still when I was in the thick of it, but I was that was one of another turning moment for me, that this is somebody's life. What do you, who are you to say? And it was just, so I just knew that I I couldn't be a part of it anymore. So when you mentioned that one of the things that you think is going to come out of the wave of deconstruction is like people having more friendships, basically, with people.
Being able to relate to people.
Being able to relate to people, being able to talk to people that aren't just like a part of your clique in this box that all believe the same thing and all saying the same stuff.
God, that is so true, Rachelle, because it's like we start to make these connections with people we would have never made before. And it just opens up your world to so much color. I just always say that term that I've see the world in color now because I was living in black and white.
We were living in black and white. Yeah. There was no gray. No. There was no, and if you don't have room for gray, then your mental health
is gonna is
tank. How could it be?
You just shame yourself because you're like, why am I feeling this depression? I shouldn't be. I'm in the Lord. I'm in the church. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. But they don't understand that. I feel like this is a way to restrict the capabilities we have in ourselves that God always gave to us. That is, we have it in and of ourselves. And that's one thing I learned was that I don't need to continue. All my journal entries were always, dear God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's been a while since I talked to you. I did this. I slept with this guy. I know I shouldn't have. And now my journal entries are, today I met a woman and she's amazing. And I just thank you, God, for, putting her in my life. And like, I don't know yet. I'd say God still, because that's still what I'm trying to decipher, but I still believe in a creator. I believe in a higher power. Yes. I believe in that energy source that is up there. I believe in that so heavily. And so I now don't live in that shame anymore. And I when I am depressed or I'm down, I meditate. I go sit and I do deep breaths and I sit with myself and I really sit in those emotions to figure out, why am I feeling like that? Mm-hmm. Okay, Kyli, let's work through that. Let's, even
like a trigger.
Yeah. Or last night, for instance, the girl that I'm talking to couldn't come over and we had this mix up where I thought she was coming over. I'd gotten everything ready and then she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then my heart sank and I started to choke up and feel like I was crying, but it was because of that rejection I felt from many men in my life where they've said they were going to do something they didn't. And I kind of pushed her away for a cool second. And I kind of shut my phone on Do Not Disturb, didn't want to respond to her. She was just freaking out I'm so sorry. Mm-hmm. And then I sat with her. I was like, I want to talk to her. Why am I putting my phone on Do Not Disturb so I don't talk to her? Mm-hmm. It's that's not fair. I started pushing her away.
Yeah, it's that fear. And that's actually one of the common symptoms of BPD is pushing people away. Yeah. And which causes a lot of friction.
Yep, because we push them away.
Because we push them away.
But we don't want that.
Right.
It's I love you, I hate you.
Right. Yeah, totally. So there's this connection. I feel like you can't treat mental health or get better without and I don't know, there are some people that they're my religion is not affecting me.
Yeah.
Good for you. This is not for you. Right. Okay.
This is not for you. This is not for you.
This is not for you. And that's okay.
We love you.
We love you. But meeting friendships, meeting new people, being able to live a juicy, colorful life, right? Because I think if anything, the pandemic has shown us is that we need connection, whether you're an introvert, extrovert, ambivert, whatever.
An outgoing introvert.
Anyway, you need that connection. And it opens the door for you to have connection with other people. What do you think the biggest thing about your deconstruction journey? We talked about the wave, but what do you think one of the biggest things about deconstruction, your journey, how would you, if someone's just starting, what would you tell them?
It's a mess. It's going to be a mess. It's going to throw you for so many loops. You're going to just be, it's going to be a mess, but to hang in there and to keep doing it and to not let anyone tell you otherwise, because this is your journey and this is your life and this is your story. It's your truth. I feel like we shouldn't miss out on the colorful life that we've been given because, we're just listening to a church or
black and white.
We're living in black and white. I feel like I was trying to tell my mom yesterday to listen to this podcast by Glennon Doyle about the attachment styles. She didn't want to listen.
Oh, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah. And it's like, I understand she doesn't want to listen to that, but you've got to do your research if you want to understand really the truth of the world and I hate to say this, it is taboo to say this, but the government too has a huge part in that. They always have. And there's a reason, it's the patriarchy. There's a reason why men have wanted to use the Bible as a way to keep us in check too. Right. And that also plays, and this is a whole nother episode for another time, but also when it comes to women of color and people of color in general, that's also a way that they've used to keep that culture oppressed, to keep white people from seeing that we're better. Mm-hmm. Why? Oh, it says in the Bible. They used it, they twist it. It's just there's so much ugly in that, and it's not the way that I feel God would have wanted us, because we're all His creation, or I hate saying His, but we are all the same.
Yeah.
God
is non-binary.
Yeah, God is non-binary. Thank you. I always say Him, but I just know it's a light source. It's an energy up there. There's no way, to me, in my opinion, that our Creator looks like us. How could they? Right. There's so many other different things that they created. And how do you know?
You weren't even there.
No, yeah. Did you go up there and then come back down, Elijah? Apparently.
But so you would say it's a mess. It's a mess. But keep going.
Keep going.
And then, when it comes to the wave, what's some other things that you expect to see out of the wave? You said the church would become taboo.
I think that it's going to kind of reflect the 70s in a way. I think we're kind of in that, but in a different way. Yeah.
Everything is cyclical.
It is. It comes in cycles. Right. And I think we're kind of redoing that again, but it's our eyes are being so opened right now, so many different ways. And I really believe that it's going to cause so many of us as women to even come together. Because I think
which is powerful.
It is, because we're starting to see that there is that patriarchy in that church dynamic, or the religious dynamic,
which also transcends to the workplace and
everything.
It touches everything.
And so I feel like once this starts to kind of go, it's going to slowly be kind of I think the men of the church are going to be this is a disaster, and the men in government are we need to control them more, and that's what they're trying to do. Because they're starting to see that we're coming out and we're realizing stuff.
Right. And we're having conversations. It's kind of like talking about your salary. What do you make? What do you make? They didn't want us to talk about our salaries because some people got paid certain things and hire for the same role.
That show you told me about, Good Girls Revolt. Yes. I've been watching that and just...
do you love it?
It's so good.
Oh my gosh,
it's just
so glad.
Crazy to think we've not even come... It's not even been
that long.
No. And women were fighting to be writers. They were doing all the work for the men, and they were getting paid 3 times less. Yeah. They were so much more talented than the men.
Right.
And it's just now we're starting to realize that women are literal goddesses. We're literally divine beings.
Yes. I love that.
And I think that men are, they are threatened by that.
Threatened and intimidated by it.
It's just a fight we're going to continue to have.
We're going to continue to have, yeah. I think what's beautiful about that is that we can have conversations on social media. And, you can listen to podcasts. So grateful for all of these platforms. Yeah, all of these platforms. You get to find what resonates with you and in whatever stage you are in, and can, find a tribe of sorts. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and I love that that's going to be a part of your magazine, and what it's bringing all of those experiences together. I wish I could be a fly on the wall for all your coffee dates. I'm sure it's
it's crazy because I have so many different perspectives of women, that come to me, even with you, and you're shocked that I microdose on shrooms so often throughout the day. Yeah. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but
no, whatever. We've got so much to talk about, y'all. Can y'all just
sense the energy?
Sense the energy. We've got so much to talk about, and this is This has been so good. I feel like we can talk for forever. And I want to have you on again.
I would love that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, please.
I love this because I feel like there's so many things that need to be covered.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We kind of have rabbit trails because we're both ADHD.
Right. That was the first episode, by the way. Go listen to that if you haven't. I'm going to leave Kyli's information, how you can follow the Oklahoma Women's Journal and follow her TikTok in the show notes, as well as follow me. Kyli, thank you so much for being here today. Like, oh my gosh.
Thank you.
This has been so good.
I can't wait to have it released and to be able to share it on the Women's Journal and have others come and listen. And your show, you're doing good. You're doing good work.
Thank you, friend. Good work. Ugh, triggered. It's okay. Shit. Thanks for listening today. Thanks for listening. I hope to see you in another podcast. Thanks for hanging out. And that was, I need coffee. Bye. Thanks for hanging out. Thoughts About That was brought to you by the Possibilities Podcast platform.